Cool, so my name's Ben Everard, and I love being in Bristol, lovely place. I'm from Taunton, just down the road. It's been a wonderful day so far. I've listened to a lot of talks about all kinds of stuff, about security, and about coding, what you really want to be coding, and if you've seen David's talk, it was amazing. I'm not going to be talking about development, because I'm a WordPress developer, so that's not really allowed. So instead, we're going to be talking about making and how that kind of links in with development from that side. So that's where I work, that's my company. I am co-founder and developer at the Idea Bureau. We are a creative digital workshop based in Taunton, just down the road over there. And we make digital apps, services, and all that kind of stuff for clients around the world. That's my day job. It's pretty cool, it's pretty annoying, all the kind of things that a day job is. But I don't let that define who I am. I'm a developer, but if someone has to ask me who I am, it's not really that. Because I'm a maker, there's the emoji, and it's not a hobby, it's something I must do. It's not a hobby. Because I can't not be making things, I can't not be fixing things, I can't not be customizing things. It's just in my brain. It's not something that I can do as a pastime, it's just something I do. But it's interesting because as I've progressed through making, actually my day job as being a developer and my night job of making useless stuff, actually it's the same thing. So I find that very interesting, and I wanted to tell that story today. So like all good stories, it starts off here. Here I am when I was 3 years old. Incidentally, when I raided the family photo album for this in October for another talk, my mum said to me, "Don't you look like someone?" And she wasn't wrong. This joke was much funnier in October before it got into power. Now I just look like an orange knobhead, so that's a shame. So thanks for that, Mum. So anyway, when I was this old, my mother and my father separated. And what that meant for me was I would spend every other weekend at my old man's house, and what that meant for me was cable TV. I love cable TV. But I'm about 7 years old now, for context. But I didn't watch Nickelodeon, or I didn't watch Cartoon Network, or any of that stuff. I watched that. Discovery Home and Leisure. There you go, there's a nod. Wonderful. So someone in the room remembers this. For those who aren't versed in this particular channel, this is where you would find DIY SOS and Fishing with Matt Hayes. Remember, I'm 7 years old. I didn't watch those programs. I watched this. Yeah, there we go. I watched the New Yankee Workshop with this fellow, Norm Abram, on the right-hand side. From the waist up, he's a creative director, but from the waist down, he's actually a master craftsman. He's a woodworker. And this particular show went on for 21 seasons from '89. Norm is the godfather of woodworking. But the interesting thing is, I would watch this, I would box set binge in my early, I don't know, 7 years old, 8 years old. I'd watch this show over and over again. In each program, Norm used to take normal materials and normal tools and make shit. It was cool. He used to make furniture, he used to make structures, and this was quite inspiring. But I was really young at this point, but I wasn't necessarily, the bug didn't hit, I wasn't making things at 7 years old. It took a little while to set in. So we'll fast forward a little bit to, I don't know, maybe my early 20s where I start making things, but I'm making things for the fun of it. Let me just scroll my notes for a second. So I'm making things for the fun of it. I made a rabbit hutch because we got a rabbit. Those things apparently have to happen. Why? Because I didn't want to pay the prices that you could pay at Pets at Home. They were ridiculous. Just because I could. But again, no major reason. I made this. This is like a candle holder made out, or I made out of, I think it's pine, but I made it by hitting it with an axe. It's pretty cool. And I made this. I angle grinded into a gas bottle, like you do, because I wanted to make a chimney. I just didn't want to spend £100 on a chimney. That cost me £10. It's amazing. But all these things so far, I'm just making it because I want to. I don't really know why. I don't really know the association. But I'm starting to understand. So I'm starting to understand a bit more now. Here's my workshop. You know, it's interesting now I can relate. My projects, much like our side projects from development, have motivations, have constraints. You know, so much so that actually they're exactly the same. It's just the materials are completely different. You might use gulp, I use plywood. It's the same thing. So the motivations can be the same, they can be different, the constraints can be different. Also, I find it's very interesting, especially from Emma's talk. It was Emma this morning, wasn't it? Lovely. Whoever was in Emma's keynote this morning, she was talking about mental health and keeping yourself well. And I find actually that making things is a good escape. It's a great escape actually from problems and life problems with your work. You know, if you've got a development problem, I'm in here doing cool stuff. So that's pretty interesting. I find that very interesting actually, to the point where I put this GIF in. Does anyone know this program, Parks and Recs? Oh yeah. So Ron Swanson there is doing some development testing, I think, on an app. I don't know how many people know though, but Nick Offerman, the fellow who plays this guy, he's a woodworker. That's pretty cool. There he is in his shop. There's a canoe he built right above him. And Nick Offerman, in a video that came out only 1 week ago, so that's pretty handy for me, said this. He said, I can read it off this, when you make things, you're engaging a part of the brain that a lot of us let lie fallow. To me, this creates depression. I absolutely think making is a form of therapy. And it absolutely is to me. I subscribe to this heavily. Oh, you can't see the offer man. Oh, damn. I really believe that making is a form of therapy. You're able to escape from the normal constraints of doing things, if it's developing in Drupal or WordPress or Laravel, even if you're making a side project. It's a great form of therapy. So there was a couple of projects there where before I really know what I was doing, just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. But I want to talk about some projects where I actually discovered some real kind of some similarities between development. So 4.5 years ago, the idea bureau of the company, when we formed, we decorated our studio, brand spanking new. Like most new companies, we needed some furniture. Like most new companies, we were skint. So we went to where all skint people go, that's IKEA, to buy some soulless shit. I love IKEA. I think, not the store, I love IKEA products. They're functional. I love the way they're built. It's so clever. But it doesn't fit the brand of a design agency. So that wasn't going to work. So what we did is we made our own desks, these two here. And, you know, I had the constraints of I didn't want to spend any money. If I were to buy these, it would cost $5,000. We didn't have $5,000. And I also had the flexibility or the opportunity to build something that was within our brand, which is quite cool. So that's what we did. We made it ourselves. Like Norm Abram, he took simple materials. There they are. Incidentally, the day before, literally the day before, I'm not even exaggerating, this was the materials for the second desk. The day before, I received a complaint from the council about noise for the making of the first desk. So I wanted to be a fly on the wall when that turned up at 7 in the morning. That would have been cool. Rabbit underneath the chair, just for note. But this was the materials, the simple materials that Norm had. And I've got simple tools there. Look, I'm just making this in my garage. By this point, I don't actually have that fancy workshop that I showed a second ago. I'm just throwing this together in my garage. It's not super difficult, but, you know, I learned a little bit. But there we go, you know, motivated by needing something, not wanting to spend a lot of money, but having the control to fit within the brand that we wanted. That's quite powerful. In fact, actually, that's what we do on our development side projects. It's the same thing. There it is. It's kind of finished. Just waiting to be painted. It looks pretty cool. I learned a lot on this project. I don't know how many of you have kind of shipped something and then 6 months later you realise that the load that it was put against kind of broke it a bit, like that, where unfortunately the table started to break apart from each other. Now I can store pencils in it. When people come to visit the office, they say it adds character, but I think that's code for you fucked up. For anyone who doesn't know, when wood's wet and it dries out, it contracts. And it doesn't want to contract. Pencil storage. But it has its advantages because sometimes you can store your ice cream in it, so that kind of works. But again, complementary to our work lives. You know, this is just another problem that perhaps some pre-planning could have solved. But I didn't think like this. Maybe I should have done. So anyway, there's one project. From this contrast, something with a very, very specific motivation, I made this, or I'm making this, it's a work in progress. This is just a time-lapse rig. I don't need it, but I wanted one. You can buy them, they're quite expensive. But I just wanted to kind of make something out of the parts that I had available. You know, and I don't really have a plan. I'm just problem solving as I'm going along, which is an interesting skill when you're problem solving when you're problem solving in the moment. Excuse me. Incidentally, when I was making this stop motion, I broke it as well. So I guess you're responsible for me having to fix that. But you know, this is just something very interesting. I'm not planning it. If I think I prefer working on this more than I prefer the end result, or when the end result comes. So it's just laying in my garage at the moment, in my workshop, because I don't want to finish it. I love working on this in the moment. It's quite interesting. Much like if we were messing around with some new technology in our development lives. So there we go. And then contrast this with perhaps something that I've only planned, like this. I've not even built this. I don't even know what this would look like in real life, apart from the fact that I've prototyped it here in SketchUp. And I guess the similarities here is when we're building out of a front-end components, or maybe components from a back-end point of view, we want to kind of understand how they're going to work first. So maybe we build a prototype. Maybe we plan rigorously so we know what it's going to do. In this instance, you can see here, I've even planned where these dowels are going to sit. Everything from the order of which it's going to get built, to make sure that when this is built and it exists, the risks of it breaking apart like my desks do, is minimal. Something that I've only ever planned. And again, the comparisons with development they're there. And this is where the kind of the similarities between development and making are real. All of these things, actually, these skills I've learned while I'm coding, or I've learned while I'm making, and bring that back into coding. And whether it's a different motivation, or a different constraints are great for kind of testing yourself, or whether it's just wanting to escape. You want to kind of you want to solve a different problem, which is actually great for problem solving in general. I just find it so fascinating. I've got a quote here from someone, an American maker called Adam Savage. Some of you might know him from Mythbusters. He was a presenter on that show in America and over here. And he says this, he says, everything that I've ever learnt has universally applied to everything else that I do. And I subscribe to this heavily. I don't think there's anything that you can't learn while you're making or doing stuff that doesn't apply to any other part of your life. It doesn't matter about development or just your life in general. And you know, this is quite interesting. I subscribe to this heavily. If I'm ever having a bit of a problem with a development task, I'll quite often come off of it and work on something else because of this. I do a lot of woodworking, that's clear, but what I wanted to do was share some examples of other making that I've come across from the people I follow on Twitter. So Kim Fox, she's local, some of you may know her. The Fox has been removed. She makes digital artwork. I don't believe this was actually her job, but I think she sells these now, but she's just doing this because she wanted to do it. And that's pretty cool. My colleague Tash here is doing calligraphy, and that's pretty cool as well, mainly because it doesn't involve a computer. And the things that she's learning about typography is, you know, it's something that she would have never have done just by using Typekit on a normal development project. Kitty from Ireland makes jewellery. Again, the things that she'll be learning from this will apply to her day job and the rest of her life as well. So again, super interesting. A slightly different one, Harry here makes cocktails. Harry Roberts, everyone knows him. I imagine the testing and iterating of this is kind of useless because after 2 drinks you've probably forgotten what was wrong with it in the first place. So that's quite genius. Similarly, my colleague Shane, who takes photographs, you know, being able to compose a photograph, to be able to have the foresight of where you need to be, what kit you need, what composition, what the weather's going to be like. It's quite complex. And then Simon here makes and paints model railways. Finally, actually, my friend Jamie in London, he makes Lego gearboxes. And again, there's nothing different. These are all exactly the same. It's the same as our day job, making. You're just using your hands and using your brain to a different effect. It's a different material. And actually, the reason why I said it's a shame that Katie wasn't able to be here today, because I think our talks would have complemented each other quite well, because knitting and sewing, it's all the same. If you're cutting up cardboard and gluing it together, it's all the same. Another one from Adam Savage here, where he says, it doesn't matter what you make, and it doesn't matter why, but the importance is that you are making something. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much. That was slightly quicker than I expected. If you feel like there's some questions, feel free to throw them my way. Equally, I imagine if there isn't, that's fine as well. So,
the person who taught me to program said that the best programmer he ever came across was previously a cabinet.
I'm pretty convinced that, I mean, first of all, it's easy for me because everyone's in here, they've paid to be in here on a Saturday, but I'm pretty convinced that no one in here is a developer because they've looked at it in a magazine and thought, that's pretty cool. If you are, keep it to yourself. But I think it just connects with how we work. But we've chosen one aspect of making, which is to do this, and some other people hit things with an axe, and or perhaps cabinet making. I think the skills you learn when you're making, I mean, I don't know if I've sold it very well, but I think they're fundamental to everything else that you do. Problem solving, critical thinking, you know. I think it's essential, personally, so that's why I like to go out into the garage and glue bits of wood together, because I think it helps, and it's a good reset on your brain, so yeah. Was there any others at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think being productive is part of you, really. I mean, when you're not programming, you want to be doing something else, which is producing something like that. So I make loads of homebrew beer, or I do lots of home brewing and stuff like that. That really just keep me.
Does anyone in here not like being productive? Like, honestly? Because I can't stand it if I'm at home and I'm not doing something. I know everyone's different, so that's cool. But I don't know. Again, it lends itself well to that because if I'm feeling that way, genuinely, 10 o'clock at night the other week, I was out in the workshop painting the walls because I just had to do something. You know, maybe I'm nuts, but maybe I'm not. So there we go. But I agree. I think, you know, some people they can't stop doing things with their hands, and I think this is just a good outlet for that. So, yeah. Any more at all? No, I recycled this. This was for a Tech Exeter talk. If you go back on my Instagram, you'll see the precarious way I had to hold my camera on like a stool and a box to get that shot. But and I just reversed it. But no, I didn't do it for this one, unfortunately. I didn't have the time. But maybe next time I'll do a proper Bristol DrupalCamp one. Maybe. There was another one at the top somewhere, sorry. I should have done that. There you go, platform tripod. I have to make one. Incidentally, the chest of drawers there, that's going, this time last year, exactly actually, we received the keys to our new house. So my client on that is my fiance. So actually, you know, prototyping and pleasing the client in your day job, you think that's bad, try and please your fiance. It's going to be, that's why I didn't want to waste my time building a thing and for her to say, no, I don't like that. So, you know, if you're going to learn from anything, learn from that. There was one at the back somewhere.
Just wanted to point out that I agree that there's similarities between work and making stuff outside of your work. The difference, I think, is the freedom that you get. I mean,
the interesting thing with the freedom, you kind of, sometimes you give it to yourself. With those office desks, I didn't want to spend £5,000, I wanted to spend £500, which is why we bought Wetwood, which is why it contracted. And, you know, sometimes, but converse that with that time-lapse rig that I'm making it for no reason. I've got all the freedom. Yeah. You kind of bring it on yourself, really, but that's cool because you get to choose. Whereas in your day job, when it's all about making money by providing value to your client, that very chain, you already have your constraints and your restrictions set. But when it's for yourself, you can choose whether you have that. And that, I think, is one of the beauties of it. I really like that. I really do indeed.
Do you take orders on bespoke desks?
Yes. You can have both of those. Because I want to make one where there's no gaps in it. Drupal logo? Oh, I might have to outsource that to someone without a conscience, but no, yeah, absolutely. Now, unfortunately, again, my other client, my fiance, has got a list longer than my arm. I think I've got, you know, bedroom furniture, a new bed for the spare bedroom, this, that, and the other, all these things. And an extension for the rabbit hutch. You would not believe it. The rabbits need more space, so there we go. Was there any more at all? Lovely. Thank you so much for listening.